to walking my dog, singing my song, strolling along.
Owning a dog is a responsibility, and if you have a busy schedule, you might need a little help. That's where Liz Dean comes in. She's a dog walker with Puptopia, a dog walking company right here in New York City. Cityscape's Andrea McCreary went on a walk with Liz and her canine client.
I've been walking dogs since August this past year, so about 5-6 months now.
And how did you know you wanted to do it?
I was a teacher for 2 years in the Bronx, and I decided I didn't want to teach anymore and I needed some time to reflect, and I thought, what better way to reflect than to work with dogs and become a dog walker? So I looked on Craigslist, and that's how I became a dog walker.
And so we're here on a cool, crisp morning with, who are we walking with here?
This is Jack. Jack is a pit bull. He is a very sweet dog. He is definitely the kind of dog that, you know, a lot of people see pit bulls and they're kind of scared of them because they think that they're these like vicious, aggressive dogs, but Jack is honestly one of the sweetest dogs that I have, and he's one of my favorites to walk.
And where are we taking Jack today?
We're gonna walk Jack towards Stuyvesant Town, that's usually where I take him. It's kind of more of a park area, which is nice, and he likes it there because he gets to sniff around and look at different things.
So, do you have a favorite dog?
I don't really want to say that I have a favorite because I don't want to pick favorites because all my dogs are really special, and they all have their own charms. I do really like Jack, the pit bull. I also walk a Bernese Mountain Dog who I've helped raise essentially from a puppy. I started walking her when she was 3 months old, and so that's just been a really great experience working with her and sort of feeling like I've had a part in her development. I'm also very partial to her as well.
Have you ever had any kind of crazy experiences where the dog started chasing after a squirrel or something like that?
Honestly, no, I don't think I've had a pretty low-key experience in terms of most of my dogs are super well behaved. I think with the puppy, it's not really that she's had any like crazy experiences, but you know, all the snow, and she's a Bernese Mountain Dog, so she loves the snow. And when the other day, you know, there's these huge banks of snow, and she jumps into them and was literally like leaping in and out of the snow like a dolphin out of water. I mean, I was literally just standing on the sidewalk laughing, and all these other people were walking by and they were laughing because it was just such a funny thing to see this dog like jumping through the snow like it was water.
And so on snow days, do you ever have to cancel walks?
Nope. It's been one of the most snowy winters in recent history in New York, and I have walked every single day. I haven't missed a single walk because of the snow.
Did the walks take longer?
A little bit, because some of the dogs don't like walks in the snow. Some of the smaller dogs they struggle in it because they're so little. Some of my bigger dogs are fine in it. Bernese Mountain Dog she loves the snow. She prefers the snow to anything else. But for some of the smaller dogs, it can be a little trickier with them.
And as we're walking, Jack is climbing up and down on the piles of snow along the street. Does he like to go on little adventures?
Yes, he does. Jack's he's a very curious dog. So he loves sniffing around. I guess he's like a dog in that way. I mean, most dogs kind of like having, that's the whole point of a dog walk really, is to get a chance for the dogs to go outside and stretch their legs, explore the world. Otherwise they'd be, because most of my clients, they're working all day, and so the reason they hire a dog walker is that their dog gets a chance to do those things during the day.
Now, the owners have to trust you, but the dogs have to trust you too. So do you get to know the dogs before you start walking them?
Yeah, actually, the company that I work for, Puptopia, which, I absolutely love, and I have all the respect in the world for both the company and the owner, is great because when I was first hired, part of the hiring process was me being introduced to each of the dogs that I would be walking and having a chance to see them and get to know them. The company places a lot of emphasis on like individual attention to the dogs, so each dog has a profile in the company on file that I help update. Like for example, with the puppy, she had a profile when I first started that I read and sort of learned about her through that, but then as she got older, obviously certain habits that she had changed or certain training things that she'd done had changed, and so I was able to help update that profile so that, for example, if someone needs to sub my walks at all, then they have all that updated information on her right on file, and they can, sort of know what to expect when they walk her.
And now Jack had to do his business, as most dogs do on their walk, and you had special bags to pick it up. Does it bother you picking up all of that,
No, not at all, actually. It's funny because, that's definitely one of the least glamorous parts of this job, I guess. But, I mean, I worked with horses all my life, and I regularly had to, muck out the stalls and stuff, and horses are even bigger animals than dogs. So, to me, I don't think too much about it.
And do you have any stories involved with dog walking that you'd like to share with me?
The cool thing about being a dog walker in New York is that you're in New York, and I spent all my time walking around and looking at people and seeing things. So I've walked through many different movie sets, for example. Recently I walked by Law and Order SVU, Gossip Girl I've walked through. So that's kind of cool. It's like fun to be able to tell people that, like, this is the life I lead. I get to walk through, movie sets, and it's no longer even a big deal to me. I walk some dogs up by the UN, and I've walked by different protests. So I think most of my sort of more interesting stories have to do with stuff like that.
What are the differences between dogs who live in the city and dogs who live in rural areas? How do you think their lives are different?
I mean, I think that I'm sure that you can kind of talk about, to some extent, environmental factors, pollution, and things like that, because, I mean, dogs are a lot lower to the ground, which means that, like, for example, you can see this truck up here spewing sort of exhaust fumes, and, like, that's, much closer to the dog than to us, and dogs' noses are super, super sensitive. So I think that to some extent there's that. The noise, of course. I mean, dogs' ears are going to be a lot more sensitive than ours, and so to have this constant, like, traffic and honking in their ears must be, I can't even imagine. So I think that there's some ways in which a dog's life in the city is at a disadvantage in that regard. But, I mean, dogs are social creatures, and they want to be around people, and they want to be around other dogs. And so if they still have things like that, I mean, and they get lots of exercise, they still have really fulfilling lives to lead.
Do you ever encounter where a dog doesn't get along with another dog on the walk, and you have to deal with that, or they generally just, don't mind other dogs?
That's actually a really good question, because that does come up, because although most of my dogs are very well behaved, as with people, everyone has their issues. Jack, for example, I mean, he is a pit bull, and he does have a bit of aggressive tendencies towards other dogs. He's very polite about it, in that he doesn't usually cause too much of a fuss. With him, I generally avoid, in part because I know other people see him as a pit bull, and they sort of automatically assume that he's gonna, hurt somebody or something. I generally just avoid having a lot of socialization with him and other dogs, because of course I'm not his owner, so I don't want to be held responsible for anything that happens to either him or to another dog. So with him, it's just best to kind of avoid it.
Jack is wearing kind of a doggy coat, if you will, and do a lot of dogs wear those in the winter, and is it necessary?
That's a funny question, because that is, like, somewhat controversial in the dog world, I think. This is what I've learned, is that you have sort of two camps in the dog world, which are people who want dogs to sort of be as much in their element as a dog, which means not sort of, I guess, maybe coddling them by having them wear coats or those little boots and things like that. But on the other hand, I think most people, and then there's the people who believe that their dog should be wearing coats, and they even want to have them wear, like, specific colors of coats, things like that. I think that the real sort of answer lies somewhere in between, in that dogs are man-made, in that, the dogs that we know today and the dogs that we walk were genetically engineered, essentially, to meet specific purposes, whether that's hunting or, companions and things like that. So, when you have a dog like Jack, who, if you can see, has a very, very short coat, I mean, he would honestly be pretty cold if he wasn't wearing his coat. He would be shivering right now. So in the end, it's like, well, I think that even though it may not be natural for him to wear a coat, it's definitely more comfortable for him too. And I think that in the end, that's really what you need to be in consideration of, is, as much as possible, what is your dog going to be comfortable with.
And is there anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, on one hand, I think that a lot of people really envy me. Like, I remember when it snowed, everybody was complaining about having to go to work and how terrible the snow was. And I spent my day, like, running around in the park in the snow with the Bernese Mountain Dog, and it's like, the fact that I get to do that for a job is amazing, and I think that I'm really lucky to have the opportunity to spend time doing that and spend time walking around the city when so many people are cramped in offices.
So does it give you a different view of the city with walking dogs?
I think it does, and I think that's what I really love about it, is that it really does give me sort of a unique opportunity that most people don't have. And I don't think that there's any other way to sort of do that, you know.
Well, thank you so much, Liz.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
That was Cityscape's Andrea McCreary talking with Liz Dean, a dog walker here in New York City.